Hey everybody, what's going on? Fabian for Liberty, Fabian Calvo. Remember this Friday, 4 p.m., new real estate webinar, the 4 new rules of real estate. I'm going to be talking about my new 2.0 course, also about my deals club, which has been really cool. A lot of people getting great results, and I can't wait for that. So 4 p.m. Pacific time this Friday. We're going to also have a Q&A as well. You could ask me anything about the real estate market, and the link to register is down below. So, all right, in this video, I want to talk about some geopolitics. I want to talk about some of the real reasons why I believe that Russia is now in Syria. And, the news is like every single day we're hearing about, Russian and U.S. jets almost colliding in midair, how the Pentagon is no longer going to coordinate with Russia on giving them intelligence because apparently what they claim is that Russia is bombing the CIA-run so-called freedom rebels, which just a week ago, I was reading a report, I think it was in the New York Times or Bloomberg, that all the money and training that's gone into the CIA training these so-called rebels has resulted in literally like a few dozen rebels being trained. I mean, you couldn't even make this up. In fact, I'm going to look for that story and post it because it's not even believable. If I told somebody that, like I'm telling you now, you'd be like, well, there's no way that's possible. But yes, according to these reports, it's very possible because, again, this isn't anything new. We have, and it's interesting because I don't have a dog in the fight with Russia. I don't have a dog in the fight with Syria, right? I want peace and prosperity in America, and I'd like peace and prosperity around the world as well. But I have to focus on America first because the reality is that that's where I live. That's where my kids are growing up, more importantly. The point being is that we have a very long track record of U.S. foreign policy being an abysmal failure for decades now. And we don't even need to go back decades. Let's just go back to the beginning of the invasion of Iraq, the invasion of Afghanistan, what's happened in Libya, which was a coalition including NATO forces and European so-called allies, what happened in Egypt. I mean, it's been an absolute horror show. None of it has worked whatsoever. And so we see the same people that led those invasions, that coordinated these attacks and these destabilization campaigns, now basically saying, no, let us do the right thing in Syria. And Syria, regardless of what you think about Syria or think about the president of Syria, was a relatively stable country prior to the so-called Arab Spring. Today, it is a faction of different Islamist groups that are all fighting for power and control, ISIS being the largest group there. There's also an Al-Qaeda offspin that's fighting there as well. And so, why is Russia getting involved? Why is Russia deploying troops? I mean, outside of the Ukraine, which, people would argue, well, there's Russian troops in Ukraine. Let's just leave that aside for a second. Why would Russia be deploying troops for the first time since the 1980s when they themselves deployed troops into Afghanistan and were completely wiped out? And many agree, or many would agree, I do as well, that it led to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union. So why are they doing this? Well, there's a couple of reasons why they're doing this. And the first one's the most important. It's the one that I've talked about for years now, which is that the global order is fundamentally changing. It's not a unipolar world anymore where Washington, D.C. dictates terms to everybody. With the rise of China and with the rise of Russia, Russia is now showing the rest of the world that, guess what, we will step up and we will back our allies. And that's why I believe they are in Syria. That's one of the biggest reasons I believe that they're in Syria. But they're also in Syria because they recognize that one of their allies, Iran, who's also been fighting ISIS and coordinating with the U.S. on fighting ISIS in Iraq, and in essence, Iran has taken over Iraq. We're seeing what this greater regional war that I've said is part of the global economic reset. I've mentioned it for some time now. This greater regional war is happening in the Middle East, and it's a Sunni-Shia war. ISIS is Sunni. They've been financed and backed by the Saudis, by some of the other Sunni countries, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and these other countries, and they are in direct opposition with the Shia, who are Iran, and Russia has sided with the Shias, basically. I mean, they're building this Eastern superbloc power, where not too long ago you had Russia selling Iran real upgraded missile technology that would prevent airstrikes from Israel hitting any nuclear reactors in Iran. So there's a lot of reasons, but I think, the timing of all this is really interesting. The world's fundamentally changing. It's changing economically. I mean, Wall Street is technically bankrupt, and they continue to. It's the video that I talked about yesterday, talking about, look, I don't believe there's going to be any economic collapse soon. They keep, just printing money out of nowhere, creating this artificial bubble across multiple asset classes, but yet they keep on going. The Russians, the Chinese, they know that can't last forever. They know that eventually that will come to an end. And there needs to be someone that's ready to step into that power vacuum. I believe it's going to be Russia, China, and Iran. Not every country is obviously going to go along with that, but already we've seen many European countries going in under the fold with China and beginning to mesh economically with them and develop different projects economically and back their foreign investment bank as well, China's foreign investment bank as well, which 42 plus countries joined. England was one of the first that wanted to be part of that. Japan and the United States have not joined that financial institution. So the bottom line with Syria is that I think Putin is stepping up, showing the rest of the world they mean business, and they have an economic, they have a military power that can be able to back whatever new financial order is created, which is really important. When England was the world reserve currency, they had the largest navy in the world that could protect the shipping lines. There weren't any jet planes back then. The United States has the world reserve currency. They at one time had the largest military in the world, the most powerful military in the world. And don't think that they still don't have the most powerful military in the world. They do. But economics now do not make the strongest military in the world what it once was, because the economics of the U.S. and of the West is in dire straits. Look, I'll tell you, I'll leave it with this. I don't want to. Anytime you have multiple different jets flying, or in this case, the Russians in the I think it was Zero Hedge I saw today or yesterday, they actually had the flight map of several different jets and how closely these jets are coming from hitting each other or having some kind of collision or confrontation in midair. All it takes, ladies and gentlemen, is for one of those things to happen, for this thing to go bad really, really quickly. Now, Moscow and Washington claim that they're going to continue to have talks about working all this out. Clearly, Putin's the one in the driver's seat, and he has been. I mean, they tried the economic sanctions against him. It hasn't worked. He's continued to expand militarily now into Syria. And supposedly they're dropping leaflets to some of the so-called Islamists in Syria, letting them know that, look, you better give up because we're bringing in not only special forces, but ground troops are coming in as well. So definitely an interesting piece of history that we're living through right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm Fabian Calvo, Fabian for Liberty. Check out fabianforliberty.com. Also, again, remember, this Friday, 4 p.m., new real estate webinar. Looking forward to hosting it and teaching a bunch of cool things. Going to throw in some neat, cool things in there as well that I think you'll really enjoy. Thanks for watching. I'm out.